Hello, everyone. This is Logan59XP here for another episode of the Nin-Cast live on July 12th, 2021. That's right, we're doing another one of these live. Why? Because I tried recording this the regular way and it just wasn't happening, so screw it, we're going to do it live again. But of course, this is going to be uploaded after the fact over on the secondary channel as per usual alongside the other Nin-Casts, so chances are most of the people that are listening to this right now are listening to it from the secondary channel, and for those of you who are doing so, thank you for listening. So, Black Widow, it's finally out all this time later. The pandemic is finally starting to, fade away. Like, obviously, there's going to be, variants and all that stuff. Variants, get it? Like the thing in Loki? Sorry, variance is not the right word. Mutations, I think would be I think that's the more correct word. But whatever, you get the point. Like, obviously, COVID is not going anywhere, but society is slowly, finally returning to normal. The mask mandates are mostly gone as long as you got your shots, all that stuff. And now you can go to the theater, and it's basically the same as it was back in 2019, which is pretty nice. And of course, I'm making this video because about a couple hours ago, I just came back from seeing Black Widow, and it was actually very nice. It was the first time I had gone to the theater since Sonic, actually, when the Sonic movie came out last year in February. It was the last time I was at the theater pre-pandemic. So yeah, I've not been to the theater since then, so that was nice. But anyways, so yeah, Black Widow. Before we get into the movie itself, I feel like we gotta address everything surrounding this movie. There's not any controversy surrounding this movie, so to speak, like, say, Captain Marvel did, but I mean more so just the fact that this is a movie that is, like, way too late. I feel like for a lot of people. This is just, like, a movie that people just want to get over with, you know what I mean? No disrespect to the movie, but I just feel like this is a movie that, should have come out. And I'm not even talking about it coming out last year. I mean, like, this should have come out in, like, phase 1 or 2. Black Widow is one of the, she's one of the core Avengers. I mean, she's not as big as as the others, but, still, she's been there since Iron Man 2. She's been around in the MCU for a long time, and only now she's finally getting a movie. We got a Captain Marvel movie before we got Black Widow. Say what you will about Captain Marvel, but I think everyone can agree we should have gotten a Black Widow movie before a Captain Marvel movie. I don't think anyone's going to argue with me on that one. But the fact of the matter is, despite the fact that this movie should have come out ages ago, despite the fact that it's been delayed like 5 times, and despite the fact that it's about a character that we already know is doomed, what do I think about the movie? It was, See, it's weird because even though obviously I'm doing this, I really don't have a ton to say about it because I didn't really have that much going in, or I didn't have many expectations going in. Because again, going back to those 3 things I literally just talked about, because it's a movie that should have come out forever ago, because it's a movie that it's been delayed 5 times, and because it's a movie that stars a character that we know dies, it's kind of like. Like, I didn't really, like, I mainly, like, basically, here's the way I see it. I mainly saw the movie because it's a new MCU movie and you gotta see it. But otherwise, I didn't really have any personal, like, reason to see it. I mainly just saw it because you gotta see it. But, again, it's like, I like Black Widow. Like, I like the character of Black Widow. I like Natasha. But, again, like, those 3 things I just brought up. Way too late. Delayed too many times, and is dead. Those are 3 strikes going against this movie, and I feel like in a way that's not really fair, because it's not really entirely fair to, like, hold the movie to something that it wasn't designed, like, at least for, like obviously this movie was, didn't really become a thing until the last couple of years, so, okay, that's different, but, like, again, the whole, like, it being delayed, like, 5 times, and the fact that we've gotten stuff like WandaVision and Loki kind of also doesn't help, because it's, like, people have been, like, really, like, enthralled with, like, WandaVision and Loki in particular. And it's kind of, like, weird that we've gone from that on Disney Plus, where, we get these longer episodes, because it's a TV show, not a 2-hour movie. We can cram a lot more development into the story as opposed to, like, having to cram into 2 hours. So it's kind of, so in a weird way, it is a little bit of a backstep because we're so used to just like having these, 30-40 minute episodes on Disney Plus, and there being like, 6 or 9 episodes per season. And then we go back to a 2-hour movie, and it's kind of like, yes, Black Widow has obviously been a thing for a long time. She's been around again since like Iron Man 2. But we haven't learned much about her specifically in all that time. There was that one segment in Age of Ultron where they talk about the Red Room, but like that's basically it. And you want to know the weird part? The whole point of this movie is supposed to be to kind of, tell Black Widow's backstory, and we get that, but like also not really. Like I kind of already knew this going in because I saw like the Real Rejects, like their first impressions on it and stuff like that. So like, I kind of already had some, that also kind of tampered my already non-existent expectations for this movie, really. And we'll get to some of those other topics later, like for example, Taskmaster and whatnot. And of course, we'll talk about the post-credit scene and whatnot. So I guess so yeah, going back to the whole thing where it's like we learn more about Natasha, but we don't. But the movie is less about her and more so just about like the family. The whole this fake family that was designed, that was done so they could be undercover or whatever, right? Obviously, we got Natasha. We got what's her name? I just watched the movie because I'm gonna butcher the name. Yelvana, is that her name? Yeah, the sister, the new Black Widow, so to speak. So there's her. Then there is, okay, again, apologies, I don't remember their names. The guy in like the red Captain America suit, basically, who's like the dad, and then there's like the other one who's like the mom, so to speak. What's kind of weird is I didn't even really put all that together at first. Because, okay, so there's that scene at the very beginning of the movie, right? Where it's them in Ohio in 1995. And at first, I was, like, confused what I was looking at. And then I was kind of like, the more it went on, it's like, okay, I'm guessing those kids are Natasha and the sister. And then, obviously, there's the parents and whatnot. But I didn't really understand, like, everything in that until, like, way later. Which is kind of weird. Again, I really didn't see that many of the trailers. Maybe there was more footage of this in the trailers. I don't know. But, so yeah, we get that, right? And that's obviously there to set up, obviously the story and whatnot. And what's kind of weird is that entire first section, where it's like in the past and stuff, feels really odd to me. Because it's like, it doesn't feel like something that would be in a Marvel movie. I'm not saying a Marvel movie needs to have explosions all the time or whatever, but like, or constant action. And what's weird is that this movie really does not have that much action in it. Like, it's got its moments, obviously. There's the car chase and whatnot. There's the breakout of the prison. Then, of course, there's the big, CG to the brim, climax, which is nice, at the very end, in the Red Room, but all that stuff. But a lot of this movie is spent just kind of like with like Natasha and her sister and just like the family and all that stuff, which is not what I was expecting. Again, it goes back to that whole thing where it's like this movie, it's about Natasha, but also like it's like half Natasha, half like everyone else. I'll give him this. It's definitely centered on, at the very least, the entire like Black Widow, just like everything about that character, in the sense that like they don't drag in other stuff. Like, how people complain about in the MCU Spider-Man movies, how it's like it's never just Spider-Man. They always gotta drag in some other thing from the MCU. How obviously Homecoming had Iron Man and darn it, it's escaping me right now. Far From Home had Nick Fury and Shield and stuff, but in this movie there's obviously references to the rest of the MCU, but it very much is its own self-contained thing that's not really reliant on anything in the past. Like, obviously, there's the whole thing with the Sokovia Accords at the beginning, which is obviously, hey, remember the Sokovia Accords from Civil War? Yeah, because this movie takes place after Civil War. And then, of course, at the very end of the movie, we have that scene where she gets on the jet and she has, the hair from Infinity War. And she's like, well, I gotta bust some guys out of prison. Hint, hint, as to what obviously happens afterwards. And they even play a little version of the, the do as it's flying off. So it's like, yeah, you're being real subtle there, Marvel, with what you're doing. But anyways, I see, again, like, I really don't have a ton to say about the movie, like, on its own. I don't want to just go through and describe literally everything, but it definitely was different. Like, not different in the same way WandaVision is different, but, like, different in the sense that it's just kind of like, huh. Because WandaVision was also kind of famous for, like, not being about the action. Like, obviously, the finale had, had some of that, but, like, WandaVision was not about the typical MCU action, CG everywhere, kind of thing. And this movie, well, probably having more of that than WandaVision, at least in terms of, like, again, the action, big climax type stuff. At the same time, it really is more of a again, a journey with the characters, or whatever you want to call it. Again, I'm not some expert, I'm sure there are other people that'll have, video essays on this that'll be way better than anything I can talk about. But okay, how about I just talk about what the things I liked in the movie, and then the things there wasn't really anything in the, there wasn't really anything in the movie I didn't like. Let's just talk about the notable things in the movie instead of just going off of whatever the movie has. So, first things first, how is Natasha? How is Scarlett Johansson Black Widow? How is she? Well, it's kind of funny, is because I think I remember the Real Rejects or whatever talking about how, like, she's great, but, like, the new one, Yelvana, whatever her name is, kind of, like, steals the show away from her in a way, and it's like, yeah, it kind of felt like that. Like, again, this movie's supposed to be about Black Widow, like the Black Widow we know, but it's like more so about just kind of like the other members of the quote unquote family, with Yelvana obviously being a major one because, of course, they're sisters, so they're gonna have that whole thing. And I like Yelvana. I wouldn't say I love her, I guess. I mean, then again, I don't really love Black Widow. I mean, I like Black Widow. I don't love her or anything. But Yelvana, I like Yelvana. If she's gonna be the new Black Widow going forward, which is what everyone's just kind of assuming, then I mean, yeah, I'd be up for that. So yeah, so obviously Scarlett Johansson, obviously she's good. She's always good. The person that plays Yelvana, I liked her. Obviously, the dad, like the guy in the red. What was the name of the character? Like, they're like, it's an actual, like, character or whatever. And I don't remember the name, but the dad in, like, the red Captain America suit. He's obviously supposed to be kind of like the comic relief, pretty much. And I know some people will probably read into that too much, but I don't know. Either way, though, it's obvious that he's mainly there for the comic relief. He's supposed to be, he's got the accent and everything. I mean, all the character. Well, okay, sorry. Yelvana, the mother, and then he has the accent, and then Scarlett doesn't. She just talks like, I don't want to say a normal person. That's not the right word. But, she doesn't have an accent. Whereas all the other characters have the accent. But obviously the big guy is going to have the most obvious accent because he's the one that's obviously used as, like, kind of the comic relief. I mean, he's not like a comic relief in the same way that, like, Drax is, like, used as comic relief. He's not quite like that, I would say. But he's definitely, like, the character that's like, not treated super seriously, is what I'm trying to say. But, I liked him. He served his purpose well. The bad guy. I don't remember his name, but the guy that controls the Red Room. I was kind of surprised at like the lengths he went. Because I'm not gonna sit here and act like he's like the greatest villain ever or anything. He's probably like not really that amazing, but he was a bit like he himself doesn't have a ton to him, but just kind of like everything he's done is just kind of like, dang. Like, I don't know, like obviously like he's the head of the Red Room. But at first you're thinking, okay, yeah, he's the head of the Red Room, we're gonna kill him because, the Red Room is, brainwashing, young girls into, being super spies and all that stuff. Okay. But then you see like how big the Red Room really is, just the big freaking floating fortress at the end. And then there's that whole thing where it's like we got like, millions of girls from, defenseless girls that have all been abandoned and left to rot that we've taken in and made into, they have purpose or whatever, what he said, that thing he said. And then it's just kind of like, dang, they've really gone that far. Like the program is that big. Like the Red Room is like, its reach is that freaking big. Like I didn't think it'd be that big, honestly. So I was kind of surprised at how big the scope of that was. Okay. Since we're bringing up the Red Room and we're bringing up the bad guy again, I don't remember his name, but the bad guy, the guy in the suit, whatever. You know who I'm talking about. I guess since we're talking about him, let's go ahead and bring up. See, well, I'm gonna say probably the thing that'll be the most controversial about the movie, even though I don't really think it's gonna be that controversial, especially since everyone's been kind of hinting at it. Again, this is another one of those things where it's like I watched that Real Rejects video, the first impressions video from like a week ago or whatever. So I kind of already knew, like, even though they didn't directly say it, I already basically knew that something was up. But I actually kind of liked the way they handled it. So, okay. So what am I talking about? I'm, of course, talking about Taskmaster. So before the movie came out, Taskmaster was probably the thing people were interested in the most in the movie. And then when the movie like came out, when there was like reviews going around, people were kind of like, yeah, Taskmaster is like not great. Like, oh, he's not used super well or whatever. But then there was like hints of like there's something up with him. And then in the Real Rejects video, they're like, there is something in this movie that will get, like, certain people really up in arms. And when I heard that, I'm like, okay. I think, like, they didn't say it had anything to do with Taskmaster. They just said there's something in the movie that's going to get certain people up in arms. And I kind of took that and I was like, okay. People have been speculating that there's something up with Taskmaster. Now they're saying this. I think I know what it is. And what do you know? I was right. But what I did not predict was what they did with the character. So first things first, I don't know anything about Taskmaster in the comics. I am one of the I am an MCU scrub who's never read the comics. But even then, I've never watched a video or like because obviously even if I've never read the comics, I'll hear about what's in the comics from other people. But I've never heard that much about Taskmaster. Because he hasn't really been a thing in the public eye up until now. Again, outside the comics and stuff. So it's kind of like, I didn't really know a bunch about him, so I have no idea what he's supposed to be like in the comics. Other than, obviously, he is like a hunter. Or sorry, not a hunter. That's not the right word. I mean, I guess you can kind of say that. No, because I'm thinking Kraven the Hunter. No. What's the word? A hitman? Is that the right word? He's like a hitman in the comics or whatever, I think is what the Taskmaster is. He's like a hitman, basically. And that is what the Taskmaster is in Black Widow, but the identity of the Taskmaster is who is different. Again, I don't know who the Taskmaster is in the comics. I don't know what his name is, but in this movie, they change it. And they didn't change it by changing the character. I mean, they did that. But they changed a certain aspect of it, and obviously we all know what it is, because if you've made it this far into the video, you've seen the movie, and of course you know what I'm talking about, especially as I've heavily hinted at it. But yes, that thing that the Real Rejects were talking about was the fact that that Taskmaster has been gender bent from male to female. Like, I think a lot of people are speculating. Again, I don't know what Taskmaster is supposed to be like in the comics, so to me, it's kind of like, I don't really care that much. But one of the reasons why I don't really care all that much is because I kind of like the way they integrate, well, I guess her, I should say, since it's now her in the MCU, how they integrate her into, like, the story. Because I was under the opinion, okay, like, she, Taskmaster's going to end up being, a woman instead of a man. Okay. But I thought that was literally all that was going to be. I thought it was literally just going to be, it's just the opposite gender and that's the only difference, but it would basically be the same more or less. But no, they actually went the extra mile, if you want to call it that, and actually made the character something that has to do with the story. It's not just some random, hit woman, I guess, if you want to call them that, hit woman. That's a word I feel like no one's ever said before. Everyone's just so used to saying hitman. But you get what I'm trying to say. Instead of just being some random hit woman, I guess, if you want to call him that, it's actually a character that is involved with the story and involved with Natasha in some way. And that's because the person that Taskmaster is actually the bad guy's daughter that Natasha blew up several years ago in an attempt to kill the bad guy. Again, I don't remember their names. Please don't shoot me. I know they all have names. I don't remember them, even though I just saw the movie. Please don't shoot me. And that was actually kind of interesting. I kind of liked that, because they didn't just gender bend the character. They actually did something with it. Whether you like it is obviously up for debate, or up to a personal opinion, I should say. But as someone that doesn't really know anything about Taskmaster, I kind of like what they did with the character. Like, if they just gender bent him and that was the only difference, I'd be kind of like, there wasn't really any, I'd be like, what's really the point in that? But they actually did something with it by actually connecting Taskmaster to the other characters, and I like that. I like it when they do stuff like that. They had a reason to gender bend him. They didn't just gender bend him for the sake of gender bending him. They gender bent him so they could connect him to the story. Or her to the story, I should say. At least that's the way I'm interpreting it. Maybe it's not that. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I'm just saying. So that's probably I want to say that's going to be the most controversial thing to come out of the movie. I don't really mind it. I'm fine with it, honestly. But obviously, for those that really wanted like a proper Taskmaster, then obviously that's kind of a shame for you guys. But personally, I don't have a problem with it. Is Taskmaster going to show up again? I mean, she lives. They take her off in the jet at the end with the other Black Widows, or widows, I should say. Are they all Black Widows, or are they just widows? And Black Widow, like Natasha, she's called Black Widow. They're probably all just Black Widows. Yeah. So Taskmaster, that's kind of the biggest thing I really have to talk about, I guess, is really just Taskmaster. I mean, overall, is Taskmaster great, all things considered? Again, I don't know what he's like in the comics, so I had really no build-up other than knowing that Taskmaster is a notable character. I thought she did fine, honestly. I thought Taskmaster was fine, I guess. Like, I don't know. Like, again, I didn't have any expectations for him, or her. Like, whatever. You get what I'm trying to say. Him, her, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. I didn't have any expectations for Taskmaster, so I thought it was fine. But I do like that they actually did something with the gender bend, didn't just do it for the sake of doing it, to mark off something off a checklist or whatever. Outside of that, I really don't have that much else to say. Like I was actually almost debating not talking about this movie, not because I didn't enjoy it, just because I don't have that much to say about it, because it's just it really is one of those movies that I just kind of want to just watch it and get it out of the way. But there is one other thing I can talk about, I guess. Let's talk about the post-credit scene real quick, which, okay, so you know how I said at the earlier, like, oh yeah, my prediction was that Taskmaster was gonna be a woman instead of a man. I was right on that. Well, here's another thing I predicted. That the post-credit scene was going to be for the Disney Plus shows. It was going to be something involving the Disney Plus shows, whether it was WandaVision, Loki, whatever. And I say WandaVision because you gotta remember, this movie was supposed to come out last year before WandaVision, so that wouldn't have been super crazy to picture. But maybe Loki, because that's currently airing, or maybe a later show. And I was correct on that too. And what's funny is that at first I didn't even really understand what was going on. Because at first, it starts, right? And then it's like, okay, it's Yelena and she's going through a cemetery. And at first I'm thinking about that thing that the bad guy said earlier when Natasha's like, what, where, who was my real mom? And then he's just like, oh yeah, we buried her, by a tree, and there's a gravestone, and her name is unknown. And then obviously Natasha's like, you didn't even remember her name. She was a nobody. Whatever. So at first I was like, is that what they're showing? Is Yelena going to their real mom's grave or something? And then obviously we see it says Natasha Romanoff, and then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. And then of course I'm just sitting there just waiting for the moment to happen. The moment where we're all like, oh, look, there it is. I was waiting for that moment, and then Yelena is there. You can see there's a bunch of flowers and stuff for Natasha, because obviously she's an Avenger, right? Maybe one of the smaller ones, probably the smallest Avenger, but still an Avenger, right? That's a big deal. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are still kind of annoyed that Black Widow kind of got quote unquote unceremoniously killed off in Endgame. And this movie was kind of supposed to be the makeup for it. Whether or not it succeeded in that is obviously up for debate. Yeah, so we get that whole thing with Yelena in her grave and everything. And then Valentine shows up, I believe is her name. Who, of course, as we all know, is from The Falcon and Winter Soldier. A show that was not out when the movie was supposed to come out in the first place. Which indicates to me that was something they changed after the fact. That was not there in the May 2020 version of the movie. Because the show wouldn't have been out yet, and you wouldn't have been able to recognize anything. Because Valentine, however you pronounce her name, is obviously there to be the hey, look, I recognize that character moment, which wouldn't have been the case if we didn't see Falcon and the Winter Soldier already. So we get her, and she does her little thing like she did in the Falcon and Winter Soldier or whatever, where she's all quirky is not the right word. You know what I'm talking about? She's doing her thing that you expect her to be like. Then she pulls out an iPad. That's what it is. It's like an iPad mini. I don't know why it's an iPad mini. At least from what I could tell, it was basically an iPad mini. It took an iPad mini, and she's like to Yelena, she's like, this is the person that killed Natasha. Because obviously they're there to mourn Natasha, right? Because this is obviously after Endgame. And then it shows a picture of Clint Barton Hawkeye. And I'm like, what? Not even, what? Just what? Just a very short and simple, confused, wait, what? Wait, what? I don't understand. And then that's basically where it ends. And it's like, what? What? So obviously the whole thing, obviously that's hinting towards the Hawkeye TV. I mean, obviously Valentine is sorry, I can't talk right now. Is obviously from the Falcon and Winter Soldier, a Disney Plus show. So I was already correct in that it was going to be Disney Plus related. But then they have Hawkeye, And Hawkeye, as far as we can tell, is not going to be in any more movies. He's just going to be in the Disney Plus show. Then he's going to be succeeded by Kate Bishop. So obviously that's a tie-in to that. So yeah, I was correct on that. I that whole thing is very confusing to me because it's like I can understand it because in a way, Clint technically killed Natasha, but not really, because obviously, at what's Vormir? Is that the name of the planet? Yeah, Vormir, in Endgame, and of course Infinity War for Gamora, they're fighting, right? To try and, kill each other, or be the one to sacrifice themselves in order to get the Soul Stone, right? So in a way, Clint, Clint didn't kill Natasha, obviously. But if you really want to stretch it in, okay, maybe not killed. How about assisted? Kinda. The most you could call it assisted. But I don't know. I don't really understand the implications of that. I've heard of actually the friend that I went to see the movie with. He actually told me about some cut Endgame scene where Clint accidentally kills Natasha with one of his arrows. Now, if that stayed in the movie, fair enough. Then that end credit scene makes sense, even though obviously he didn't do it intentionally. But he would have technically he would have killed Natasha, but he didn't. In the final movie, he doesn't kill Natasha. Not in any way I would consider to count, anyway. So I'm not entirely sold on that, but obviously that's supposed to set up the Hawkeye show and everything. And that was again probably added after the fact. That probably wasn't there in the May 2020 cut, because of course Valentine wasn't introduced to us yet. And that's supposed to be the big, oh look, the character's there. J. Jonah Jameson was in the Far From Home one. And of course, you can make that example for a lot of the post-credit scenes. But yeah, yeah, that's kind of all I really got to talk about right now. Apologies if this video seemed kind of or this stream, whatever. It's gonna be a video once I upload it. Apologies if this whole discussion seemed a bit kind of disjointed, but I it's weird. Outside of a couple of select things, I don't have that much to say about this. I really don't, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just don't have much to say about it. But I guess my overall thoughts on the movie is it's decent. It was nice to go out to the theaters again after so long, and it was nice to see an MCU movie again. But again, the whole thing where the movie is just took way too long to come out, and it's about a character that we already know dies. It's kind of it was nice to have finally after all this time, but I would say is definitely probably on the lower end, of the MCU movies, I would say it's better than, I think I mentioned this earlier, but if I didn't, I'll bring it up now. I'd say, at least as of right now, obviously subject to change, all that stuff. As of right now, I would say that it is better than Thor the Dark World, which I know isn't exactly a high bar, but I'm just saying. It's better than Thor the Dark World. It's better than The Incredible Hulk. It's better than Captain Marvel. And I'm not even one of those people that really hates Captain Marvel, but it's definitely I'd say Captain Marvel is probably one of, if not my least favorite MCU movie. And I don't even really hate it. I just don't really care for it. I'd say this is definitely it's better than Thor the Dark World. It's better than The Incredible Hulk, and it's better than Captain Marvel, but I would still put it on the lower end. Maybe if this movie came out earlier, I would put it higher, but as of right now, I would definitely put it in the lower echelon of MCU movies. It's not a bad movie, but it's just, it's just not a ton I get out of it, at least from this one time. Of course, I'll watch this video. Obviously, once the 4K Blu-ray comes out, I'll probably end up watching it again, and who knows, maybe my opinion will change. But overall, I mean, again, I had no real expectations going into this movie, so it's kind of overall, the movie is, it's fine. It's not bad. but it's not amazing. It's fine. The characters are nice. Obviously Scarlett's good. Lana's good. All that stuff is nice, but not really a ton for me to really talk about. It's just kind of, again, like I said earlier, it's just a movie that we all need to get out of the way so we can get to the rest of the stuff. So we can get to the newer stuff like Shang-Chi and Eternals, and of course get to the really big stuff like, of course, No Way Home, which of course is basically what the MCU hype train is currently on right now, is No Way Home. And of course, Toby, Andrew, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Electro, everyone is here, basically. What's basically being set up to be like the end game of Spider-Man. Now, whether or not it's going to succeed in that, obviously is subject to change, or is, to be seen, but yeah, so Black Widow, I mean, obviously, if you're an MCU fan, obviously you should go and see it. If you like the Black Widow character, then obviously you've probably already seen it, and you already have your opinions on it. It's a solid movie. It is. And if you like the MCU, definitely go watch it, but is it amazing? No. It's not bad, but it's not amazing either. It's 7 out of 10. Like, it's nice, but there's not a ton to it. Again, if Natasha wasn't dead, if this came out earlier, I'd probably like it more. But because it's a movie about a character that we already know what happens, it's kind of like, But yeah, enough of you harping on that. That's just my opinion. Again, solid movie, but not amazing, not great. But hey, it's here, it's finally out, and now I can move on to the rest of the MCU in Phase 4. And of course, that Loki finale is coming up soon, so stay tuned for my thoughts on Loki discussion. And unlike this one, that one's definitely going to be more, I'm going to have more to say about that one for sure compared to this one. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, so where you got your guys' thoughts on Black Widow? Did you love the movie? Did you hate the movie? Did you kind of think it was, it was nice, it was nice and everything, but it wasn't amazing like I did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And with that being said, this is Logan59XP, and I'll see you guys next time.